Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in, well, one of the most urgent and complex subjects in modern technology. It's the convergence of artificial intelligence and cryptography.
Absolutely.
And this isn't just some technical puzzle, right? It's a geopolitical and economic imperative. Our mission today, for you listening, is clear. We need to quickly get our heads around how AI is reshaping data security.
Reshaping and, frankly, challenging it.
Exactly. And how it's grappling with maybe the single biggest threat to digital trust we've ever seen, the looming arrival of quantum computing.
That framing is absolutely crucial. We're really at a pivot point here. Think about traditional cryptographic systems.
The stuff running everything online.
Pretty much everything, yeah. The
Yeah.
protocol securing your banking, your email, even how systems manage their own secret keys. They're facing, well, simultaneous threats from multiple angles.
Okay, like what specifically?
Well, first, you've got the AI-enhanced cyber attacks happening right now. They're evolving incredibly fast. Then there are vulnerabilities, often buried deep, maybe in how keys are managed. And looming over all of that,
And quantum threat.
the absolute foundational threat posed by quantum computers. Now, AI-driven techniques are emerging as really the essential way to bolster our defenses today. But, and this is the kicker, AI is the definition of a dual-use technology, meaning it introduces brand new, really sophisticated risks from adversaries. It just accelerates this whole arms race.
It sounds like an information battlefield, and speed is everything.
Right.
So over the course of this deep dive, we're going to unpack AI's dual role. First, as this super efficient defender.
Right.
And then the flip side as this stealthy adaptive attacker. Then we absolutely have to confront the urgent need for post-quantum cryptography, PQC,
We do.
and explore the global transition needed to, well, secure our digital future against that quantum risk. Finally, we'll maybe pivot a bit, look at a constructive case study, life sciences, pharma, biotech,
Yeah, it's a great example.
to see how this same tech that threatens our data is also transforming human health. Before we wrap up, we'll have to address the critical challenges. Ethics, implementation hurdles, transparency issues, they cut across everything, don't they?
They really do. It's all interconnected.
Okay, let's start right there on the front line of defense. When we talk about AI and cybersecurity, we hear a lot about machine learning, deep learning. For, say, an organization just dealing with firewalls and threat logs today, how is AI practically enhancing their security, moving beyond just simple rules?
Right. So the essential shift, the big change AI enables, is moving from just reacting to security incidents to being truly proactive, even predictive.
Predictive, how so?
Well, think of a traditional security system like a guard checking IDs against a known list of troublemakers. It can only spot threats it already knows, things it's seen before, but ML and deep learning algorithms, they can look at the sequence, the context, the behavior of network traffic, user actions.
So pattern.
Exactly. Complex patterns that allow them to detect novel threats, zero-day exploits, things that have never been seen before.
Okay, can you give us a concrete example?
Yeah.
How does AI predict a vulnerability before it actually becomes a breach?
Sure. Take predictive threat detection. AI systems analyze just absolutely massive data sets. We're talking petabytes of raw network traffic, vulnerability reports, code changes, all crunched in real time.
That's a huge amount of data.
It is. And using advanced pattern recognition, the ML models spot these subtle anomalies, maybe combinations of events that historically tend to happen right before a major breach. It's not just flagging a bad IP address anymore.
More nuanced.
Much more. It's predicting that, say, a specific configuration change combined with an unusual user login from a weird location at 3 a.m., that pattern indicates a potential compromise, so the system can mitigate it, maybe isolate a server, before the actual attack payload even gets delivered.
And, okay, once a threat does surface, speed is obviously critical.
Yeah.
A human analyst might take hours just to figure out what's going on.
Right, and that delay. That's why automated incident response is becoming so essential. Security operations centers, SOCs, they're just drowning in alerts.
Alert fatigue.
Totally. AI-powered automation can instantly analyze an attack's nature, its scope, where it came from. It can triage how severe it is, isolate the affected systems, and neutralize the threat way faster than any human team possibly could. This drastically shrinks the dwell time.
The time the attacker is actually inside the network.
Exactly. And that dwell time is directly linked to how much a breach costs. Shorter dwell time, less damage, less financial loss.
I find the application for monitoring internal risks really fascinating. Not just external attacks, but like weird stuff happening inside the network, deviations from the norm.
Yeah, that's the power of AI-enhanced anomaly detection, and it's absolutely critical for catching insider threats or malware that might have slipped past the perimeter defenses. The system builds this detailed, dynamic baseline of what normal looks like.
Not just for the network, but for people, too.
For everything, the network, every individual user, every device. So if an employee who normally accesses, say, 3 documents a day, suddenly starts downloading terabytes of sensitive financial data, or if their login location jumps from London to Lagos without any travel plans logged,
The AI flags it.
instantly, it flags that behavioral deviation. Google's security tools, for instance, lean heavily on these kinds of behavioral biometrics to spot activity that suggests someone's credentials got stolen, or maybe an advanced persistent threat an APT is operating up inside.
And this intelligence, it even goes down to hardening the actual building blocks of security, the crypto itself.
Precisely. AI is transforming key management and encryption. Take key generation. ML algorithms can improve the randomness, the sheer unpredictability, and the overall strength of cryptographic keys way beyond traditional methods.
Better random numbers, basically.
Much better, yeah. Plus, AI can optimize encryption algorithms for specific situations, maybe make them faster and less power-hungry on mobile devices, for instance, while making absolutely sure the mathematical strength holds up against sophisticated cryptanalysis.
That's key, because if AI can optimize the defenses,
It makes them both stronger and more practical to roll out everywhere, which is crucial. But, and this is a big but, we have to confront the flip side, this incredible defensive power. Malicious actors are adopting it just as quickly. This is where it gets really interesting and, frankly, a bit scary. Cybercriminals are also leveraging AI, and it's escalating this battle into a truly relentless, constant arms race.
it's the classic dual-use technology problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the cutting edge look like on the attack side right now?
The attacks are becoming incredibly precise, very targeted, and really hard to defend against using old methods. Consider AI-generated phishing attack.
Okay, not the old typos and bad grammar phishing.
Not at all. Generative AI models can now craft highly personalized spear phishing messages. They mimic the writing style, the context, even refer to recent internal company communications of a specific target employee or executive. They exploit human psychology so effectively that they're almost indistinguishable from legitimate messages. They just sail past traditional filters that were looking for those obvious red flags.
And the threat's moving beyond just text into manipulating identity itself, which brings us to deepfakes being used for fraud. That sounds terrifying.
Deepfakes are a major, major security threat now. Attackers use generative models to manipulate voice, video. They can impersonate high-level executives.
Like the CEO.
Exactly. Often targeting accounting or finance departments trying to authorize fraudulent wire transfers. Big money. They're also used for corporate espionage, trying to leak confidential data by having a fake executive call a key researcher to extract information. The quality is getting so good so fast that traditional verification methods, like just recognizing a voice, are becoming unreliable.
And the malware itself is getting smarter, adapting on its own, not just static code anymore.
That's AI-driven malware. Often uses techniques like polymorphism. This is malware that uses reinforcement learning or similar AI techniques to autonomously adapt its own code.
It learns.
It learns, it might mutate slightly every time it runs. It figures out which parts of its code got detected by the defenses and changes those parts specifically to evade traditional signature-based security. Your conventional antivirus software, relying on its database of known malware signatures, it becomes practically useless against this kind of shape-shifting threat.
And then there's the direct attack on the AI defenses themselves. Adversarial machine learning, AML, you call it digital jujitsu, using the system's own intelligence against it.
That's a perfect analogy, yeah. Adversarial AI, AML, is basically the malicious use of machine learning models specifically designed to bypass the AI security mechanisms we just talked about. The goal is either to fool the defensive model or, worse, to corrupt it entirely.
How do they do that? What are the main techniques?
Well, we generally classify several key methods. Evasion attacks are probably the most common. That's where malicious data, like malware code, is subtly tweaked, just slightly modified so the AI detector misclassifies it as benign, harmless. It just slips right past.
Okay, so fooling the detector, what else?
Then you have poisoning attacks. These are much more insidious. Here, attackers manage to inject corrupted, deliberately mislabeled data into the training set of the defensive AI model.
So they poison the well. basically.
Exactly. They cause the model to learn incorrect security policies from the start. If the model gets poisoned to believe that certain common types of malware are actually safe, well, it's going to ignore real attacks down the line. They also use techniques like model inversion and model extraction.
What do those do?
They try to reverse engineer the defensive AI, understand how it works, maybe even steal the model itself. This allows them to craft perfect counterattacks, pre-tested attacks that they know the defensive AI will fail to spot. AML really undermines the fundamental trustworthiness of every AI-driven cybersecurity system we rely on.
Okay, that definitely sets the stage for the current digital arms race, AI versus AI. But now we have to shift gears, right? We need to talk about the foundational threat, the one that makes today's entire security architecture, even the AI-enhanced parts, potentially vulnerable in the long run.
The quantum threat.
Yeah, and it seems like it's moving a lot faster than many people realize.
It is, and this is an architectural challenge, not something you can just patch. Think about classical public key systems, RSA, elliptic curve cryptography, ECC, Diffie-Hellman. These are the mathematical foundations of pretty much the entire internet's security.
Right, based on hard math problems.
Exactly. They rely on the fact that certain math problems, like factoring extremely large prime numbers, are just computationally infeasible for classical computers. It would take the best supercomputers today billions of years to break a strong RSA key.
Billions of years. And the quantum computer changes that fundamental calculation. How quickly?
Instantly. Well, relatively speaking. It does it through Shor's algorithm. A quantum computer, harnessing quantum phenomena like superposition and entanglement, can use Shor's algorithm to solve that factoring problem in minutes, maybe hours for very large keys, but not millennia.
Minutes versus billions of years.
Right. Which means RSA 2048 encryption, which is the cryptographic bedrock for global data security right now, is rendered completely obsolete, broken. It's an existential threat because it just pulls the rug out from under the very concept of secured data transmission and storage we've built over the last, 40 years.
So what's the actual timeline here? I know experts at NIST and elsewhere have weighed in.
Yeah.
If it's, say, 10 to 15 years away for a big enough quantum computer, why the panic today?
The timeline is critical, yeah. And 10 to 15 years for a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, or QC. That's the general consensus estimate. But the urgency, it comes down to two things: complexity and compromise.
Okay, explain those.
First, complexity. Migrating the entire global digital infrastructure, rewriting code, updating firmware, replacing every single digital certificate on servers, browsers, devices. It's a monumental undertaking. It will likely take a decade or more itself. You can't just flip a switch.
So we need to start now to be ready in 10, 15 years.
Precisely. Second, and this is the immediate problem, compromise. We are already living under the shadow of harvest now, decrypt later, HNDL.
Okay, explain that concept again. It sounds ominous. And why is it a current threat, not just a future one?
HNDL is the immediate, non-negotiable threat to data confidentiality today. Adversaries, mostly sophisticated nation-state actors, we assume, aren't waiting for a working QC to arrive. They are actively intercepting and storing massive volumes of encrypted data right now.
Just hoarding it.
Just hoarding it. Encrypted emails, financial transactions, government communications, intellectual property. They intend to simply stockpile all this encrypted data until they do get access to a powerful quantum computer, maybe in 5, 10, 15 years. Then they can decrypt it all.
So any sensitive data encrypted today?
Any data you encrypt today using classical algorithms, that needs to remain confidential for a decade or more. You have to assume it's already compromised, or will be. It's sitting on an adversary's hard drive waiting for decryption day.
That is a truly staggering thought. And you mentioned there are like suspicious real-world signs that this data harvesting might actually be happening now.
Yes. Security experts point to some highly anomalous network behaviors that, well, they strongly suggest large-scale data harvesting might be underway. The sources mention incidents involving Border Gateway Protocol, BGP, hijacking.
BGP, that's the internet's routing system, right?
Exactly. It directs traffic across the internet.
Yeah.
And there have been documented instances where huge volumes of internet traffic, including data flows from major tech giants like Google and Amazon, have been mysteriously rerouted, sometimes through geopolitically sensitive locations like Russia or China, just for short periods.
Yeah. And the theory is?
While it's hard to prove definitively, the working theory among many experts is that these incidents could be sophisticated, state-sponsored attempts to basically siphon off and collect massive, unfiltered streams of encrypted data for future quantum decryption, facilitating that HNDL objective.
So if the current defense is based on math that Shor's algorithm is going to break, the answer isn't waiting for quantum hardware, it's developing new math that's quantum resistant.
Exactly right. The solution is post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. This is the next generation of cryptographic algorithms. And the most critical point for you listening to grasp is this. PQC is designed to withstand attacks by future quantum computers, yes, but it runs perfectly well on existing classical hardware.
Oh, okay. That's important. We don't need quantum computers to run PQC.
Not at all. It's software or firmware for the computers we have now. PQC relies on solving new types of complex mathematical problems, things like finding short vectors in high-dimensional algebraic lattices problems that are believed to be computationally intractable, even for a powerful quantum computer.
That distinction is crucial, especially because you often hear about quantum key distribution, QKD, in the same breath. Can you clearly lay out the difference between PQC and QKD for us?
Yes, this is one of the most critical concepts to get straight. QKD is a quantum technology. It's hardware-based. It involves transmitting single photons and using the laws of quantum physics to detect eavesdropping during a key exchange.
Sounds secure.
It can be, for the key exchange part, but it has massive fundamental limitations. First, QKD simply does not scale for the whole internet. It's basically limited to secure point-to-point fiber optic links, usually over relatively short distances. The signal degrades quickly. You need costly optical repeaters, which might not be trusted.
So not practical for global communication.
Not at all. Second, and this is the absolute deal breaker, QKD does not provide authentication. It can help ensure the key exchange itself is secret, but it can't verify who you're exchanging the key with. It doesn't prevent a classical man-in-the-middle attack where an attacker just intercepts the communication and pretends to be both parties.
So even with QKD, you still need something else for authentication.
You absolutely still need strong authentication, which PQC provides through digital signatures. QKD is niche, expensive, needs dedicated fiber, while PQC is the software-based solution designed to provide both confidentiality and authentication for the global internet, running on existing infrastructure.
Okay, so PQC is the main game here for broad security.
Precisely. PQC is the strategic solution. You must have PQC. QKD remains a highly specialized, limited application for very specific use cases.
And there's a clear roadmap emerging for this PQC transition, driven by international standards bodies. Tell us about the NIST process.
Right. The U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, has been running this big, multi-year international competition since about 2016. They've brought together cryptographers from all over the world to propose, analyze, and attack potential PQC algorithms.
To find the strongest ones.
Exactly. To vet them thoroughly and select the algorithms that will form the backbone of global post-quantum security. They've now finalized their initial selections for the primary standards.
And what are they?
For key establishment and encryption, basically, setting up secure communication channels, they selected Crystal's Kyber. And for digital signatures, which provide that crucial authentication, proving who sent a message, they selected Crystal's dilithium. These are the algorithms organizations really need to prioritize and start planning to integrate now.
Okay, so that's the what's Kyber and dilithium. Now the how. This migration sounds absolutely enormous. What's the mandatory first step for any organization wanting to get quantum ready?
They need to achieve something called cryptographic agility, and the very first step towards that is comprehensive inventory. You simply cannot fix what you cannot find.
Knowing what crypto you actually have.
Exactly. Organizations must conduct thorough crypto agility assessments. They need to identify every single system, every application, every piece of hardware, every library that uses cryptographic protocols. This results in what's called a cryptography bill of materials, or CBM.
Like a parts list for crypto.
Pretty much. This CBM becomes the definitive map showing where all the old vulnerable algorithms like RSA and ECC are running, and often they're buried deep in old firmware, legacy applications, third-party components, places you wouldn't immediately think of.
Once they have that map, that CBM, how do they manage the complexity of actually transitioning potentially billions of devices without breaking the internet?
The transition pretty much demands a hybrid encryption model. This is really key. It means that during the migration phase, which could last years, organizations don't just abruptly switch off RSA and turn on Kyber overnight.
That sounds risky.
It would be. Instead, they combine them. They use both classical algorithms like RSA or ECC and the new PQC algorithms like Kyber simultaneously in their key exchanges or signature schemes.
I'll bet both.
It ensures security is maintained against both classical hackers today and protects against any potential unforeseen weaknesses that might emerge in the brand new PQC algorithms as they get more widely deployed and attacked. It also buys time. This hybrid approach provides security redundancy and allows for a more phased, systematic deployment across diverse hardware and software, ensuring minimal disruption to services. That's the critical challenge in this mass migration, doing it without breaking everything.
And governments are now stepping in, adding regulatory pressure, making this a compliance issue, not just a security nice to have.
Absolutely. This has definitely become a global mandate driven by legislation now. In the U.S., the Quantum Computing Cybersecurity Preparedness Act requires all federal agencies to inventory their crypto assets and create a documented plan to transition to PQC. That's a huge driver.
And in Europe.
Over there, the EU's Cyber Resilience Act, which is coming into force soon, will enforce secure by design principles, explicitly including cryptographic standards, likely by 2026. Non-compliance will mean potentially heavy penalties, which effectively forces any company operating in the EU market to accelerate their PQC timelines.
And we're seeing the big tech players already moving, paving the way.
Oh.
What are companies like Google or IBM doing?
Yeah, the industry giants are definitely pushing this forward. Google, for example, has been a pioneer, not just participating heavily in the NIST competition, but actually implementing PQC internally years ago. They adopted quantum-safe digital signature standards, specifically related to dilithium within their core cryptography library, Boring SSL.
Boring SSL. That powers a lot of things, right?
A huge amount of Google's infrastructure and Chrome. So they're demonstrating that enterprise-scale PQC deployment is feasible today. Meanwhile, IBM is positioning itself as a leader, helping other large organizations make the switch. They're offering end-to-end services and software suites, like their IBM Quantum Safe platform, specifically designed to help companies manage that CBM inventory and execute the complex phased transition to being quantum safe. The urgency is now clearly baked into the world's leading tech platforms.
Okay, let's try and connect the dots here. We've talked about AI as this hyper-efficient defender, but also a sophisticated attacker in cybersecurity. And we've discussed the existential quantum thread driving the urgent need for PQC. The common thread seems to be this convergence of massive data, huge computational power, and these advanced AI models.
That's right.
Now, let's maybe zoom out for a moment. Look at the constructive twin of this technology.
Yeah.
How is AI fundamentally transforming another high-stakes sector, one where using data effectively is just as critical as securing it? Life sciences, specifically pharma and biotech R&D.
Yeah, this is where you really see AI's promise translating directly into human value and also into explosive financial growth. The sheer scale of the opportunity is just staggering when you look at the numbers. The AI in pharma market, estimated at nearly $2 billion in 2025.
Okay.
But it's forecasted to rocket to over $16.49 billion by 2034. That's a compound annual growth rate of around 27%. That tells you this is far more than just hype. It's a fundamental restructuring of how we discover and develop medicines.
The 27% CGR is huge. That suggests incredible value is being created or unlocked. Where's that value actually coming from?
Well, AI is projected to generate somewhere between $350 billion and $410 billion annually for the pharmaceutical sector by 2025. That value comes from radically accelerating the entire drug development lifecycle. Optimizing the whole process from the earliest discovery stages right through to completing clinical trials, it saves immense amounts of time, huge amounts of money, and maybe most importantly, it significantly increases the probability of a drug actually succeeding.
And who are the leaders making this happen? Which companies are really embracing this?
We're seeing rapid adoption pretty much across the board now. Pfizer famously leveraged AI heavily to accelerate the identification and development of their COVID-19 treatments, including Paxlovid. AstraZeneca uses predictive models extensively to find promising drug candidates for chronic diseases. Janssen, which is part of Johnson & Johnson, reportedly has hundreds of AI projects running, including their Trials360.ai platform for trial management. And interestingly, Roche actually topped a recent Statista AI Readiness Index in 2023.
What does that indicate?
It indicates they view AI not just as another tool, but as absolutely core infrastructure for their future.
Now, the traditional path for getting a drug to market is notoriously long, right? Something like 14.6 years on average.
Yeah.
And incredibly expensive, often exceeding $2.6 billion. How does AI manage to shorten that brutal timeline so drastically?
AI is revolutionizing drug discovery right at the very beginning. Traditionally, identifying a good target for a drug, like a specific protein involved in a disease, was a lot of painstaking trial and error in the lab. Now, AI algorithms can sift through these vast libraries of genomic data, proteomic data, scientific literature.
Finding needles in haystacks.
Exactly. Pinpointing novel drug targets that human researchers would likely miss. And then it uses predictive modeling to evaluate how well potential drug molecules might interact with those targets, all with unprecedented precision before you even synthesize them in a lab.
Can you quantify those efficiency gains? How much time or money does it really save?
For complex drug targets, the kind that have been really hard to drug traditionally, AI-enabled workflows can achieve massive optimization. We're seeing estimates of savings up to 40% of the time and 30% of the costs involved in that early discovery phase. By analyzing promising candidates earlier, refining their properties digitally, AI significantly increases the likelihood that a compound will actually succeed once it gets into expensive human trials.
Are there specific AI models that are really game changers in this space, like generation-defining tools?
Oh, absolutely. The structural prediction models have been truly transformative. AlphaFold, developed by Google's DeepMind, is the prime example everyone points to.
Wait, predicting protein shapes.
Exactly. It predicts the 3D structure of proteins directly from their amino acid sequences with near atomic accuracy. We're talking a precision of like 0.96 angstroms for the protein backbone. That's incredible. Achieving that kind of structural certainty digitally saves months, sometimes years, of laborious laboratory work like X-ray crystallography.
And it's going beyond just predicting existing structures now.
Yeah, newer generative models, like
Yep.
one called Genie, are now going beyond just prediction. They can
Okay.
actually design and help synthesize entirely new proteins that don't currently exist in nature, potentially opening up completely novel therapeutic approaches. It's really cutting-edge stuff.
That's incredible. Okay, so once a promising compound is identified, the next huge bottleneck is clinical trials. And you mentioned patient recruitment often stalls trials completely.
It's often the single biggest point of failure, yeah.
No.
Around 25% of clinical studies fail simply because they can't enroll enough patients, or they can't find the right specific patient cohort needed for the study. AI dramatically improves patient recruitment optimization.
Now.
Machine learning models analyze massive electronic health records, EHRs. They integrate genomic data, diagnostic codes, treatment histories, real-world outcomes, all to rapidly identify potentially eligible participants across huge populations. Platforms like TrialGPT are emerging to automate this really complex matching process.
So finding the right patients faster and more accurately.
Exactly. Ensuring researchers can quickly access diverse patient populations that meet the strict trial inclusion criteria with much greater precision than manual searching ever could.
And refining the design of the trial itself must lead to big savings, too.
It absolutely does. AI uses real-world data, RWD, that's data collected outside of traditional clinical trials, from things like wearables, insurance claims data, EHRs, to identify patient subgroups who are most likely to respond positively to a new drug.
Tailoring the trial.
Kind of. It allows for more dynamic adjustments, maybe refining inclusion criteria during the study itself. This can cut down the overall trial duration significantly, estimates suggest by up to 10%. The efficiency gains here are enormous. Projections estimate AI could lead to savings of up to $25 billion in the clinical development phase alone. That could fundamentally change the economics of drug pricing down the line.
And the impact isn't just limited to the lab or the hospital, right?
Yeah.
It extends to how medicines are actually made and delivered.
That's right. It's driving the move towards Industry 4.0 in pharmaceutical manufacturing. AI is crucial for manufacturing optimization. It helps ensure product consistency batch after batch, enhances quality control through real-time analytics monitoring production lines.
Fixing problems faster.
Much faster. And this is often paired with predictive maintenance. AI analyzes sensor data coming off specialized manufacturing equipment. Think complex bioreactors, high-speed filling lines, mixing tanks. It analyzes vibration patterns, temperature fluctuations, things like that.
To predict breakdowns before they happen.
Exactly. To predict failures before they occur. This predictive capability avoids catastrophic downtime, which is incredibly expensive and firmer, and ensures a smooth, consistent production flow for potentially life-saving drugs. Quality and consistency are paramount.
And the most sophisticated application here seems to involve creating virtual models of entire processes.
That's the power of digital twins. These are high-fidelity virtual models. They can be models of a manufacturing process or even models of biological systems, like a virtual patient cohort. You use these digital twins to simulate scenarios.
To test things out digitally first.
Precisely. identify potential inefficiencies in manufacturing, or even predict how different patient subgroups might respond to a drug. For example, in one Alzheimer's study, researchers used digital twins created from real patient data to effectively stand in for the placebo or control arm of the trial.
Reducing the need for real patients in the control group.
Yes, it reduced the number of real human participants needed in that control arm by 35%. This not only speeds up the research timeline and potentially reduces ethical concerns, but it can also provide reliable comparative data much faster than traditional methods. So, we've really established AI's incredible potential, both in defense and in these transformative sectors like life sciences. But look, we absolutely cannot overlook the complex obstacles that come with implementing this technology at scale. And these challenges, they cut across both cybersecurity and healthcare.
Okay, let's circle back to the security implications then. We talked about how even mathematically secure crypto can be undermined by implementation flaws, especially when adversarial AI gets involved.
That's a persistent and worrying vulnerability. Attackers are smart, right? They don't always try to brute force the complex math of AES or the new PQC algorithms. Instead, they look for ways to exploit flaws in how those algorithms are implemented in real-world hardware or software, often using side-channel attacks.
Side channels, what are those exactly?
They analyze things other than the direct input-output of the crypto function. Researchers demonstrated this quite starkly. They trained a neural network to analyze the tiny, almost imperceptible fluctuations in power consumption or the faint electromagnetic emissions coming off a device while it was performing cryptographic operations, like generating a key.
And the result of listening to those side channels.
The result was pretty shocking. Using these subtle side-channel leakages, the AI model was able to recover full AES encryption keys with something like a 94% success rate in controlled lab environments.
Wow, 94%.
Yeah. It just shows that the intelligence of AI can be turned to bypass the mathematical security guarantees entirely by exploiting physical leakage. It means organizations have to protect not just the cryptographic code itself, but the whole physical and electrical environment in which that code runs. It's a much harder problem.
Beyond these sophisticated attacks, what are the more practical, maybe mundane, real-world hurdles for actually implementing these new, often computationally heavy AI and PQC systems?
Well, computational costs are a definite barrier to entry for many. AI-based cryptographic systems, and particularly the new PQC algorithms, which tend to be significantly heavier, requiring more processing power and memory than their classical predecessors like RSA, they demand high computational performance.
The tougher for smaller players.
Exactly. For smaller organizations, startups, or even larger companies trying to upgrade older legacy systems with limited processing resources, this initial resource requirement can pose major challenges. It risks creating a security gap, a divide between the large, well-funded organizations who can afford the upgrades and everyone else.
And just the sheer difficulty of plugging complex new technology into old existing systems must be enormous.
Oh, that's the scalability challenge. And it's huge. Integrating sophisticated AI analytics engines or brand new PQC algorithms with existing infrastructure, which is often decades old, complex, maybe poorly documented legacy stuff, it's a tremendous hurdle.
Examples.
Whether it's trying to integrate complex AI fraud detection into the interactive dashboards of a major financial institution, or needing to upgrade the firmware on every single sensor chip embedded in a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant. The compatibility issues, the integration testing, the cost of retrofitting, it all limits the speed of adoption, and that limits cryptographic agility.
We also had to touch on the ethical dimensions, the transparency challenges, particularly in healthcare. The issue of bias baked into the training data can have immediate, devastating real-world consequences, right?
This is a critical concern. If AI models used for, say, drug discovery or identifying patients for clinical trials are trained predominantly on data from just one demographic, maybe mostly male patients or mostly patients of European ancestry, then the resulting models will inevitably be unrepresentative. Bias.
Leading to unequal outcomes.
It leads directly to algorithms that can perpetuate or even worsen existing health disparities. You end up with diagnostic tools or treatments that work really well for the majority group represented in the training data, but poorly, or maybe not at all, for other populations. Mitigating this inherent bias in data collection, in model training, and validation, it's a massive ongoing effort, and it's an absolute moral necessity.
And the complexity, especially of deep learning models, creates that infamous black box problem. If the AI is making critical decisions about drug targets, about potential security threats, but we literally cannot understand how it arrived at that decision, how can we possibly trust it or regulate it?
Right. That lack of interpretability, particularly with deep neural networks, which can have millions or billions of parameters, is a major headache, especially for regulators. Bodies like the FDA in the US or the EMA in Europe, they require clear justification for approving new treatments or clinical trial protocols. They need to understand the why.
And same in security.
Same in security. An analyst needs to be able to audit why an AI system decided to block a certain user or isolate a specific server. This fundamental lack of visibility necessitates the rapid development and deployment of explainable AI, XAI models and techniques.
Explainable AI.
Yeah, XAI is the whole field focused on creating AI systems that can provide understandable rationales or explanations for their outputs and decisions. It's absolutely essential for building trust, ensuring accountability, and, frankly, for enabling the necessary regulatory approval and oversight of these incredibly powerful systems. And finally, hanging over all of this, the pervasive concern remains the dual-use nature of the technology itself. The very tools we're building for defense, for progress, they can be weaponized.
Meaning the ability for malicious actors, maybe rogue states, to use these same advanced AI-powered cryptographic systems or hacking techniques against us.
Precisely. If we are developing AI that can design optimal PQC key generation methods, you have to assume that an adversarial nation-state is developing AI that can find subtle mathematical flaws or implementation bugs in those new systems faster than we can discover and patch them.
Another arms race.
It just emphasizes the urgent need for international collaboration, for transparent development practices, for strong ethical guidelines. We have to ensure that defensive innovation consistently outpaces malicious application, particularly when we're talking about the fundamental security mechanisms underpinning the entire global digital infrastructure.
Wow, okay. We have covered a huge amount of ground. The intensifying battle against AI-driven threats, that urgent race against the quantum clock, and also the profound constructive transformation AI is bringing to critical industries like pharmaceutical R&D. If there's one common theme cutting across every single source we've looked at, it seems to be the absolute necessity for speed and, maybe even more importantly, adaptability.
I think that's exactly right. To maybe summarize the key takeaways you should carry forward from this. First, AI is absolutely instrumental. It's essential for strengthening data security today. It provides things like self-learning encryption models, vastly enhanced intrusion detection. But its full potential is only really realized if we actively manage the inherent risks, the risks of adversarial AI, and if we seriously address those persistent ethical concerns around transparency and bias.
Okay, takeaway one. AI is crucial but complex.
Second, the shift to post-quantum cryptography, to PQC, it is not some distant science fiction problem. It is an immediate imperative for data confidentiality today, primarily because of that very real and accelerating threat of harvest now, decrypt later. Organizations simply must proactively plan their PQC transition now and prioritize implementing those NIST-approved standards. Crystal's Kyber for encryption, Crystal's dilithium for signatures.
Right. Immediate imperative. Got it. And the third key takeaway.
And finally, the overarching strategic imperative for pretty much every technology leader, every CISO, every engineer right now is achieving cryptographic agility. That's the systemic capability built into your systems and processes to seamlessly transition between different cryptographic protocols as needed. This continuous, flexible ability, especially the ability to use that hybrid approach combining classical and PQC algorithms during the migration, that is the fundamental key to future-proofing any security system against both today's emerging threats and tomorrow's paradigm shifts, like quantum computing.
Agility is key. Okay, that leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Given that the biggest, most fundamental threats we've discussed now come from adversarial AI models on one hand and future quantum computers on the other, essentially, technology is designed specifically to solve incredibly complex mathematical and computational problems. How should you or your organization balance your investment? How much do you focus on strengthening the purely mathematical defenses, like rolling out PQC everywhere, versus how much do you invest in managing the sheer behavioral complexity and the inherent unpredictability of the humans, and indeed the intelligent AI systems themselves that ultimately interact with and use all that data, however well it's encrypted? That's the strategic balancing act, isn't it? That's the challenge that's likely going to define the next decade of digital security and trust.